Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Copperfield's Books virtual event with Gelong Thubten. My name is Jamie Madsen, and I'm the Marketing and Events Coordinator here at Copperfield's, and I'll also be your host for the afternoon. I'm happy to remind you that all 9 of our stores are open for both inside service and curbside pickup every day from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. As COVID-19 continues to endanger the future of indie bookstores like us, we'd like to take a moment and thank you all for your continued support, both in-store and online. So a couple of housekeeping items before I introduce today's author. We will be using the chat box to provide links to view upcoming Copperfield's events, links to purchase today's title, as well as my contact details for follow-up information. Additionally, the Q&A box will be your go-to today with any questions or comments for the author. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you will see a Q&A icon. Please go ahead and put your questions and comments here rather than replying to my post in the chat box. And as always, we will try to get to as many of you as we can, as your feedback is welcomed and appreciated. So without further ado, I'm really excited to introduce today's author, Gelong Thubten. Gelong Thubten is a Buddhist monk, meditation trainer, and author. Thubten was educated at Oxford University and then became an actor in London and New York. At the age of 21, tremendous amounts of stress led him to join a monastery where he was later ordained as a Tibetan Buddhist monk in 1993. The term Gelong means senior monk. Thubten's training over the past 25 years has included spending over 6 years in intensive meditation retreats, the longest of which lasted for 4 years. Thubten has studied under some of the greatest Tibetan meditation masters and is here today to discuss his latest title, A Monk's Guide to Happiness, Meditation in the 21st Century. I'm really pleased to hand it over to you, Thubten. Take it away.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I can't see you, but you can see me. I'm really grateful to Copperfields for hosting this event, and I think it's really good that we're supporting independent bookstores, especially during this really difficult time of lockdown. So I'm really happy that Copperfields asked me to launch the US edition of my book through their webinar. So it came out this week. It's already been out in the UK for more than a year, but it came out in the US this week. So the sort of theme of the talk is I'm going to talk a little bit about the book, but really I want it to also be something useful and practical as a tool for you. So I'm going to talk about meditation and how to do it and what it is, and maybe we'll even do some meditation together. We could do a short guided session. So you've heard about my story a little bit in the intro, that I'm a Buddhist monk. I've been a monk for 26 years now, at a monastery in Scotland, although right now I'm not in Scotland. I tend to be also in other places doing teaching and writing. And I wrote this book because I wanted to talk about 2 very important themes. Obviously, the theme of meditation or mindfulness, but also this whole notion of the human being's search for happiness and how that is, especially now in this modern era. So I actually first of all came up with the title Meditation in the 21st Century, because that's something I wanted to really address. How are people approaching meditation in the modern era, and why has it become so popular? And so I myself have been, except during this lockdown phase, obviously, I have been teaching in lots of situations such as hospitals and businesses, prisons, schools, universities, environments which contain a lot of stress. And it's been really thrilling and exciting for me to see how much people want to use meditation in their daily life and how it's changing and transforming their lives, especially in the sort of fast-paced rhythm of modern living. So I wanted to call the book Meditation in the 21st Century, and that's its subtitle. And I wanted to also talk about happiness. And then my UK publishers suggested calling it A Monk's Guide to Happiness. And at first I was kind of a little bit reluctant. I said, I'm not writing this for monks. I don't want people to think, oh, this is just a monk's handbook. And they said, well, you are a monk, so call it A Monk's Guide because that's who you are and people are interested. And it got me thinking. It got me thinking about how maybe people are interested in a monk's perspective for a couple of reasons. I think one of them is that people are really keen to learn meditation. And so what I have put in the book are not my own practices that I've invented, not at all. They are traditional practices. I've been trained traditionally in the Buddhist tradition. And so these practices, which we learn at the monastery and then can take out into the world, are really ancient methods that have been tried and tested for centuries. And the really exciting thing is that they don't need to be modernized or updated. Even though they're ancient methods, they are just as relevant now as ever, because they are dealing with the technology of thought, the inner wiring of our mind and how we think and how we feel and how to transform that. So the methods have this ancient lineage that is so relevant today. And then I think the other thing about sort of the monk's perspective in terms of this book is that I talk in the book, in fact, I open the book with talking about how it felt for me disappearing from life for a few years and then coming back into the busyness of the modern world. And what was the perspective like when I, can you imagine how it feels to go into a retreat that lasts for 4 years on a remote Scottish island where you're completely cut off from all interaction with the outside world? There's no electricity, but there's no internet, no phones, no newspapers, no interaction with the outside at all. So this was in 2005. I'd already been a monk for a few years, and then I wanted to go deeper. So I went into this very intensive meditation retreat. And then how does that feel coming out of that retreat and sort of arriving back in places like London, and then I started to travel and teach again. How did that feel, and what was the perspective like, having sort of removed oneself and then coming back into the speed of life? And I really found it quite a shock, because while I was away, everything had sped up. During those 4 years when I was in that retreat, 2005 to 2009, those 4 years, actually a lot happened in the world of technology, which have really changed the way we process information now. So, for example, during those 4 years, the smartphone revolution happened. The iPhone was launched or became a big thing, and also social media, things like Twitter and Facebook, and also YouTube. All of these platforms emerged, and that completely changed the face of how we receive information, how we share information, and also the way we now have so much accessibility going on in a small device that we carry in our pocket. And so I came back into the world after this retreat and saw that everybody had their faces buried in smartphones, and there was such an increase in speed and distraction. I remember going to London and going on what we call the tube. In the States, you'd call the subway. And you're walking through the subway station or up the escalator, and there's all these video images on the walls. That hadn't been the case before I went into retreat. And I just noticed that and thought, God, we're really invaded by advertising all the time and imagery that's very fast moving. And I got very interested in what that's doing to our minds. So on the one hand, maybe there's a lot of benefit in being able to communicate like this. I mean, right now, look what the internet is doing for us, especially during lockdown. We've been able to communicate like this. And so of course there's good stuff there. There's a good side to it. but I was interested in how it's sped up our minds, and our attention span has become so short, and also how much we now feel that the news has such an invasive edge to it. You know, it's coming at us all the time. Years ago, if you wanted to find out what was happening, you would choose to buy a newspaper or turn on the 6 o'clock news on the TV or whatever. But now it's kind of popping up all the time, and there's the way it's constructed with advertising behind the headlines and what they call clickbait, where you're sort of given this very enticing, frightening, usually headline, shocking, that pulls you in, and then there are ads, and the whole thing around being constantly manipulated by information. And it's too much for us. I mean, sure, I think we need to be well informed, but when it's coming at us so much and there's no downtime, I think it's made us more frightened and more distracted. So this kind of speeding up has made our attention spans very short, and I think we're more stressed. I came out of that retreat and just noticed that stress levels had really gone through the roof. People are feeling more pressured. So, you know, the great irony there is that we as a human race created the digital world to simplify our lives, to make things smoother for ourselves. But in one sense, that hasn't worked, because we've just ended up with more going on and no space to just be, and very little space to be in the present moment. We're always in somebody else's moment, or we are observing people's moments as they've been carefully curated and posted online, airbrushed and photoshopped and all of that filtered and then posted. And this is the moment. Somebody had a moment and now we're looking at their moment, and we are experiencing the moment and then posting that moment to see if other people like it. So there's a feeling of, we're not sure if we're enjoying ourselves. We have to check if we get 100 likes and then we've been validated. Our moment, our experience has been approved by the friends or the masses. So I'm speaking quite negatively in a way. I don't think it's all bad. I just am interested in what this has done to our minds, and then on the good side, how much people are into meditation. So that's the other thing I noticed when I came out of that 4-year-long retreat. The mindfulness revolution had happened. And so in Europe and in the States in particular, so many more people are now really interested in meditation. It's become very mainstream. So it's almost that where there's a problem, there's a solution. So there's a problem of increased stress and increased busyness and distraction. And then people are reaching for something that will help them navigate those waters. So it's almost like mentally we reached a crisis point, and now we're seeking some healthy medicine for that. And meditation can be that medicine. So I was really fascinated and interested to see how much people are drawn to practicing meditation or mindfulness. You can call it either of those. And it has become so much embedded in our society now. So it's practiced in many schools, and it's seen as a very healthy medical intervention. So doctors will talk about it as a healthy and useful thing for people to do. And it's also has a role in the sort of corporate environment where people are stressed and people want more mental focus and they're meditating. It's become something which some companies are even bringing in as an offering for health and well-being for their employees. So that had been happening already a little bit, but when I came out of retreat, it really exploded in a good way. And so I then started to contribute to that by starting again to give courses and classes, and also starting to write books. So that's sort of the monk's perspective. That this monk disappeared for a while into retreat, and then came out and noticed all of this, and then eventually I wrote this book, A Monk's Guide to Happiness. I wanted to really address full on this notion of happiness, because that's the other thing I started to think about at that time, coming out of retreat, is what is people's relationship to happiness, and how has that changed over the years? I mean, what does happiness mean? You know, it means different things to everybody, to different people, but obviously it's the thing we most want in life. We all want happiness. We want to be free from unhappiness. We search for happiness. We're all on a sort of search for happiness, maybe in terms of big scale, in terms of our ambitions in life, or just day to day, moment to moment. We want to feel good. We want to be happy. We want those we love to be happy. We want the world to be a happier place. But how has that changed? So again, going back into this notion of the speeding up and the sort of slightly invasive or very invasive nature of information and technology, what has that done to our search for happiness? Well, obviously, what I'm talking about here is how much the advertising industry and the media in general throw images at us all the time through our phones or screens or billboards or wherever we're walking. And these images can have a detrimental effect in that we're constantly being told, you are not satisfied, you can't be satisfied, you need to strive for more. I mean, of course, that's how advertising works. It's designed to make us feel we're lacking something, and that if we get this thing, then we will be happy. So we're sort of promised happiness constantly, and told if you look like this, or if you have this, you will then be happy. So I think that constant conditioning we receive through all of those ads and through the media and just through the way we live is making us more hungry for this sort of ever elusive happiness, because we run after things. We search for that happiness, usually through material objects or people or situations or whatever. We search for that. And maybe what we don't realize, and this is something I try to kind of, break apart in the book and analyze, maybe what we don't realize is that the searching is leading to more searching. So the argument I present in the book is that the search for happiness is probably the thing that blocks us from obtaining happiness, in that the more we search, the more we search. Searching leads to searching, in that our minds are full of habits, that the habit kind of breeds more of itself. So if we are running on that treadmill of seeking something, that leads to more of a mentality of seeking, more of a searching mentality. So we might get what we want, but then we're still not happy. We find we want something else or want more of it. And then the ads come in to manipulate that part of ourselves and say, yes, you do need more, and then you'll be happy. But when do we arrive? When does it end? Are we ever satisfied? So I'm looking at that searching mentality and how that grasping just creates more dissatisfaction. And then, of course, this takes us into a deeper journey of thinking about, well, it's to do with the mind, isn't it? Happiness is a mental experience, it's a state of mind, and so is unhappiness. Of course, they are triggered by events and situations, but it's we who experience happiness and unhappiness, and these are thoughts and emotions. And the question is, can we train our minds? Can we develop a different relationship with our thoughts and emotions? So this is then where meditation steps in. We've been looking everywhere for happiness, and we've been feeling that the world around us is creating our unhappiness. And now we want to actually turn within and almost sort of take greater responsibility for our mind states and how to influence those in a positive way through training. So then we start looking at meditation. So meditation isn't a sort of just like a feel-good exercise. It's not like a sort of like going to a spa for a treatment. it's not that we do some meditation and then just feel great, but it's more a ongoing process of evolving and developing how our minds are, and how learning how to be less driven by unhappy thoughts and feelings, and learning how to cultivate happier thoughts and feelings. So in the book, I started to talk about happiness more in terms of freedom, true freedom, to be free internally. You know, we aren't free internally. We maybe live in a relatively free society, and we make choices all day, and we like to be free thinking people. We like to have our own, it's important to us to have our own belief system and not to be told what to think or what to do. We are independent, we're free. That's so important. But looking deeper within, we discover that we're not really that free, because in terms of our thoughts and feelings, our minds often go to places we don't want them to go. Our minds often do things we don't want our minds to do. For example, worry, fear, anxiety, sadness, anger, irritation. We don't plan to feel that. We don't sit there thinking, well, now I'm going to do some worrying and then I'm going to stop worrying after 10 minutes. It's not like that. It just happens. And sometimes we can't even sleep at night, where our minds are churning the thoughts so much. So there's a sort of chaos in there in a way. There's a sort of instability, and we'd like to start to get a handle on that. So that's where meditation comes in. So what is meditation? And maybe it's more interesting to look at what it's not. What are people's common beliefs about meditation, some of which are not really true, sort of misconceptions. What I'm getting at here is what I think is the biggest misconception about meditation, which is that very often people think it's about removing all of your thoughts. I mean, very often people think meditation is all about clearing the mind. So that's a common misconception. People sit down to meditate and think they have to clear away their thoughts. They try to blank out their minds, going blank. They try to remove their thoughts. They think it's about emptying. So they sit there and just try to still the mind. Okay, so I don't know, maybe many of you have meditated and maybe you know what I'm talking about, which is that if you try to do that, it is a disaster, because you sit there trying to just blank out. And of course, then your mind starts thinking. I mean, you're trying to do your meditation, and then you find yourself thinking, did I feed the cat? Or what's that email I need to write? Or random thoughts come up about food or shopping or what you saw on TV yesterday, or the mind just starts to wander, and then you think you've failed. You think, oh, I can't meditate. I've got too many thoughts. How do I get rid of them? And it starts to feel almost as if the more you push them away, the louder they shout. And then it's like a battle between myself and my thoughts. And that's a disaster. And it's not what meditation is about. It's not about emptying the mind, but it is about focusing the mind. So you might focus on your own breathing, for example, meditating with the breath. We'll try that in a few minutes together. I'll explain how to do that. So what you're doing is focusing on your breathing. So you're really in the moment and you're aware and you're focused. And then, of course, the thoughts will start up. So you kind of lose track of the breathing, and now you'll start thinking about other stuff. And the whole point then is to just gently bring your attention back to the breathing. So you're with the breathing, then you get lost, and then you just notice you got lost and come back. And that happens again and again during the session. So you haven't failed when your mind gets distracted. It's not failure. You're just going to come back to the breath. And it's that coming back to the breath, it's that returning to the breath that strengthens you, because when you come back to your breath, you are teaching yourself how to be free. You're teaching freedom to your own mind, because we weren't free in that moment, were we? We wanted to focus on our breathing, and then we started thinking about other stuff. We lost our freedom of choice. We choicelessly got dragged off into thoughts. But then we notice, oh, I'm thinking, and now I'm going to deliberately just leave that thought and come back to the breath. So I'm learning how to free myself from that distraction. And what does that do in the long term? If you meditate every day, you know, some people might just do 10 or 15 minutes a day, but they also try to have little moments of integrating that awareness throughout the day in small moments, even while they're working or busy. So if you meditate every day, then you're learning this kind of technique of freedom. So what it means is that we are training our minds to be less controlled by the thoughts and emotions. The aim is not to remove them all, but the aim is to learn how to be less controlled, so that we could start to choose to let go of the worrying, the negativity, the fear, the stress, and instead to cultivate positive mind states. We're learning mental flexibility, because going back to the technique again, when your mind wanders, but then you bring it back, you are changing your relationship with your thoughts. It's almost as if you're showing your own mind who is boss. Instead of the thoughts bossing you around, you are coming back. So I find this point really important, and really people feel very inspired and kind of excited when they hear this, because they start to realize that meditating and then thinking that the thoughts are a problem is actually making them more stressed. And when they start to realize that the technique is simply about noticing that you got lost and then returning to the breath, then it doesn't matter that you have thoughts. In fact, the thoughts are helping you, because if the point of the practice is to come back to this moment, to the breath, you've got to have somewhere to come back from. So those thoughts that took you away have enabled you to train in returning. So the thoughts are not a problem. And what this does is it changes your attitude towards your own mind and towards the meditation. It creates a sense of internal gentleness, kindness, compassion towards yourself and towards your mind. And this is really what meditation is about, a gentle self-acceptance, rather than battling with your thoughts and emotions. And this will also, of course, help us to have that more accepting, loving and kind attitude towards others. So that's an important key point about meditation, which is how to change our attitude about the thinking mind, and how that's not a problem, but it's actually part of the process, and it's all about training and coming back again and again to the breath or other techniques. So in the book, I offer lots of different techniques. The breathing is one of the main ones, but there are, we could use any of our senses. We could use sound, or we could use the body, as in just scanning the mind through the body. It's called a body scan normally, where you focus on different parts of the body. So it's all about focusing on something and coming back to that point of focus when you lose it, when you get distracted. The other thing I talk a lot about is that meditation is not just something you would do at home, you know, for 10 or 15 minutes as a nice thing you did at home, and then the rest of the day, you know, what happens then? Meditation is something we can take with us throughout the day. And so I talk a lot about the importance of practicing little moments of mindful awareness as you go through your day, little moments of mindfulness. That means you're standing in line at a store, or you're sitting in your car at the traffic with the red light, or in a traffic jam, or you're traveling, you're waiting for a train, or standing somewhere, or sitting behind your desk, or washing the dishes, or brushing your teeth. I mean, these simple situations, these moments, can be used in a mindful way. You can feel the ground under your feet as you stand there. You can feel your hands just feel you can be sitting and just feel your hands resting on your legs, or you can feel the chair under your body, just for a micro moment, a small moment. Or you can be washing the dishes and you can be fully aware of the feeling of the soap, the water, the hands moving, just being fully in that present moment focus. Or brushing your teeth and feeling the brush against your mouth. I mean, it's just that sort of present moment awareness. So these moments can be practiced many, many times throughout the day. And that means you're bringing your meditation with you. It's something that travels with you, and it means you're never too far away from the training. So those are some points I find very helpful, and points I like to talk about with people, and hope you find them inspiring and useful. But I think before we move to discussion or questions, I think it'd be good to just taste this and maybe do a short 3 or 4 minutes of meditation together. Let's do that. So if you want, if you don't want, just have a quick sleep and wake up when we do the questions. But otherwise, let's try this together. Seated in the chair, however you're sitting, but maybe there could be some kind of discipline in the posture, a feeling of, sitting up nicely, sitting up straight rather than slouching. So you want to sit up nice and straight on your chair. Maybe you can place a small cushion behind the base of your spine, so that there's lower back support. Your feet are flat on the ground, parallel. Your hands are palms down on the tops of your knees. Your back is straight, your shoulders are open, your head is nice and upright. You don't need to close your eyes. A lot of people think they're supposed to shut their eyes when they meditate, but actually you can just leave them open, but not looking around the room, just looking into space in front of you, maybe sort of slightly angling your eyesight downwards in a way, without your head tipping forward, but just looking downwards and kind of switched off, like your eyes are switched off. You're not looking at something, but you're just gazing into space, and of course blinking whenever you need to. So just get into that posture, be present with that. Take a moment now to establish your intention. This is a really good way to start the meditation session, by setting the intention, which is a bigger picture. Why am I meditating? So just take a moment to think, I am going to meditate for my own benefit, of course, to help me, but also to bring more compassion into my life and into the world. So there's a sense of doing this for others as well as oneself, because if you meditate, your stress reduces, your mental focus increases, your happiness increases, your compassion increases, and this will help those around you. So you're doing this for you, and you're doing this for the world around you. So take a moment to establish that wish or that intention, that commitment. Just think about that for a moment. And now go into the meditation, which is to start by feeling how you're sitting. Feel the chair under your body. Be aware of the seat. Feel the seat under you. Just through your body. You can feel it under your backside. You can feel it behind the base of your spine. Feel the ground under your feet. Feel how your feet are touching the floor in your shoes or whatever. It doesn't matter. You're just feeling the contact with the earth, with the ground, with the floor. Feel your hands resting on your legs. The contact between your hands and the legs. Now become aware of the front of your body, your chest, your belly, your abdomen, and feel how your breathing affects that. Feel how it makes your chest or your belly kind of rise and fall. Breathe very normally. You don't need to breathe deeply or in a different way to normal. Just breathe naturally, but feel how it moves the body slightly. And whenever your mind drifts into distraction, gently nudge your attention back to the present moment using the breath and your body as the focus. Now focus on your face. Focus on the feeling in your face of the breathing. Breathing naturally, just lightly, normally, but feel the air traveling in and out of your nose. Or if your nose is blocked, or if you have an issue there, breathe through your mouth. But either way, you're feeling the air either coming in and out of your nostrils or passing across your lips. The air moving in and out. Focus on that sensation of air against skin at your nostrils or your lips. When your mind wanders, bring it back again and again to this place of focus. Let's try that for a minute. So now to end the session, just doing a short practice, end the session by feeling your body again. Feel the contact between your body and the chair. And then the last moment again is compassion. Take a moment to kind of finish your session by making that deep wish or intention. May I benefit myself, but may I also benefit others. May my practice help me to be more calm, more happy, but may this also bring benefit to the world around me. Through my meditation, may I help others. May I grow and develop my compassion. Just end with that aspiration or inspiration. And stop there. That was just 5 minutes, but it's a good start if somebody's new, and maybe doing that every day would be good. And then you could start doing longer for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Start small, I think, and then build it up. So I think now we could look at questions. So I'm going to look at the Q&A. Oh, lots of questions. So let's go through them. So the first question was, can you tell us more about your work on movie sets as a meditation guide? Yeah, I was the meditation sort of trainer on a film a few years ago. It was called Doctor Strange. It's a Marvel film. and I was there on set while they were filming, and I worked with the lead actors. So in between filming, so in between scenes, we would meditate together, and I would guide them through different techniques in quite a kind of crazy environment, because a movie set has 300 or 400 people on it, and so while they're resetting the cameras, there's a lot of noise and stuff, but we managed to find a quiet zone at the side of the sound stage or wherever we were filming, and just do some meditation to get them really focused and into the zone, ready for their next scene. The movie itself had a kind of meditation theme, and in Doctor Strange, the lead character, Doctor Strange, goes to a temple and learns meditation, and it's a more like a fantasy way. I mean, he learns how to kind of fly and do all kinds of miracles. That's obviously out of this world fantasy stuff. The meditation, we're not pretending that that's possible, but the theme of meditation is definitely there in the film, and so the actors really wanted to have that sort of calmness and clarity and awareness while they were performing. So it was interesting work for me and for them. Next question. What would be your number one tip for people who have chronic and clinical anxiety? Well, I would say meditation, but so particularly for this, I would say it's so important to meditate in a very gentle way, because you don't want to meditate in a way that's going to make you more anxious. So like I was talking before about having a better relationship with your thoughts, what I mean by this is, if you're trying to clear your mind and trying to get rid of the anxiety and trying to fight the thoughts, that just makes you more anxious. So I think it's the number one tip is to try to meditate with great gentleness. So you're doing the breathing, for example, and then thoughts come. Maybe they're anxious thoughts, or maybe just ordinary mundane thoughts like, what shall I eat for lunch? But you learn how to just gently return and not beat yourself up, not give yourself a hard time for having those thoughts. And that creates the kind of internal landscape of gentleness and calmness, and this will help, hopefully over time, to start to reduce the anxiety. Thank you. These questions are great. So the next one is, in the book, your message is that we are hardwired to be happy. How does that translate to modern day when there is so much sadness in the world and unhappiness with COVID and overall global unrest? Well, yeah, this is the point I was making in the book, is that we are in a world filled with suffering and filled with stress. And obviously I wrote the book before COVID, but this COVID pandemic has been and is a horrendous stress for all of us. So life is really tough a lot of the time. But the argument I make, which is not my argument, it's the Buddhist argument, is that deep down inside, we have a core, like the core, the center of us is happy and calm, and like the stillness under the waves. And that is always there. That is our deeper mind. And we're very caught up in the thoughts and emotions and stress and distraction and fear. And we need to learn to kind of connect in with that stillness within ourselves that is there deep down inside. I use the example of like the sky behind the clouds. The clouds can be stormy, but the sky behind it is always blue and spacious and still. So we can connect with that, especially in harsh times and difficult times. And knowing that that is within us, knowing that we all have internal purity. In Buddhism, they call it the Buddha nature, that we have a Buddha within. Buddha simply means the awakening, which is our potential. Within us all, we have great potential. So obviously we're not able to see that or feel that, but just to have a notion of that and to believe that we have something pure inside deep down that we can connect with through meditation, or at least get closer to, I think is very important, especially in these difficult times. Next question. What is your go-to favorite meditation? Well, it's not really like that, because my attitude to meditation is I do it every day. It's not that I sort of have like a one that I'll I'll sort of do when I want to. I have my meditations that I do every day. And actually, yeah, your question's helping me think about this more deeply, because I used to be a little bit, get confused by the fact there are so many practices, especially within Tibetan Buddhism, which is the tradition I'm a part of. There are many, many practices. And I used to think, well, how do you choose? And do I like this one or not like that one? And then things started to change when I started to see that actually they are all different techniques that do the same thing, which is to get you to have more awareness of your own mind. So a bit like food, you can eat lots of different foods, but they all nourish you. So when you start to have that kind of attitude to your practice, that all the practices are the same, you're just doing this practice now, it doesn't matter what it is, it's the practice you're doing. I think that takes away a sense of judging the practice. Next question, can happiness be negative? I wonder if you mean, can there be sort of a downside to it? Well, it depends how you define happiness. I don't think happiness can be negative when we're talking about happiness in its purest sense, you know, to be calm and content and at peace with oneself. I don't think that's a negative thing. But maybe a kind of happiness that could have a negative effect is when we are almost sort of pretending to be happy and almost inflicting that on other people, sort of, you know, making other people feel judged because we're just so kind of breezy and bright and maybe a little bit sort of superficial and not really connecting with them. So maybe that could be perceived as negative. Next question. Hi Thubten, do you see Oh yeah. Hi Thubten, do you see meditation varies very much country by country? Are there primary differences between practice here and in the UK? No, I don't think so. And also historically as well, the techniques have been the same. I mean, that breathing method which I taught comes from Buddhism, which means it's been practiced the same way for 2,500 years. And what I love about this is that it doesn't need to be modernized or adapted culturally. You know, if you're a person, when the Buddha was, you know, the Buddha was in India 2,500 years ago, so a person in India practicing the breathing then, or now somebody in California in this era now practicing, it's the same breath, it's the same mind. Maybe the details of our lives are different, but the technique of learning to deal with the thoughts differently is timeless and beyond culture. Another question. How would you recommend disconnecting from chasing happiness when so much of our societal happiness is really influenced around capitalism and job achievement? How do you gain freedom internally when our minds are hardwired around career success? Well, this question kind of relates to what I was talking about at the start of the talk, which is that we are chasing happiness. We're kind of on this treadmill that's been encouraged by the society around us. Chase more, get this, get that, achieve this, achieve that, get more things, buy more stuff. How do we gain freedom internally? Well, this is the thing. We need to learn to reclaim our attention and not be so dragged around by all of these distractions, and learn to find that inner stillness and inner contentment and inner satisfaction. Because if we find satisfaction within ourselves, we will be less pulled by outer things. I don't think it will make us detached or cut off from life. It won't make us stop trying to achieve anything, but I think it will help us to be less desperate and more self-reliant. So through meditation. Next question. My wife died 4 months ago and I'm isolated in the woods, very alone now because of the pandemic too. How does one find joy in this solitary, grieving monk's life? That's a very profound question, and thank you for being so honest, and I'm sure we all send you our love and compassion and sympathy for your situation. And it's hard. It's a hard situation that you're in and that many people are in. But since you are open to asking this question and you're thinking about this, how does one find joy, and you want to know, there is a part of you then that wants to even in this, you know, isolation and grief, to connect with inner joy. And what I would say is that being alone in the woods and being isolated and locked down in this pandemic time, can you use that as a meditation retreat? Can you make that choice that you are in retreat? And so then you're not cut off and isolated and alone in a sort of harsh way that this has been done to you and that you are locked in, but more that you have chosen to spend time with your own mind and to gently, I say gently, this is important, not in a harsh way, but with gentleness, to use each day for meditation sessions. And then your experience of being isolated in the woods and being alone changes because you start to see it as a fruitful time for spiritual development. So I hope that maybe you can try that and it could start to transform the sadness and worry of the situation you're in. So we all wish you well. Next, tips for meditation specifically in quarantine. Similar to the last question in that, can we use quarantine and lockdown and isolation as a retreat? I mean, people normally pay lots of money to go on meditation retreats, but in a way this has been handed to us on a plate. We've got it for free. We have to be in retreat. And what is good about retreat? Well, if you're doing a lot of meditation, you kind of want to be locked down because you don't want to be running around getting distracted, because that's sort of, what am I trying to say? That becomes detrimental to your intensive period of practice. You want to really focus and do maybe 3 or 4 sessions a day and really go deep. So being locked down is perfect for that. That is what retreat is. You are in a building, you don't go out. I mean, get some fresh air, of course, get some exercise, but basically you're not running around. So you are in one place, and that can be perfect for meditation training. I once said this to a bunch of prisoners. I was teaching meditation inside a prison. And I said to them, you guys are locked up here for 4 years, but I know people myself as well who choose to go somewhere for 4 years and be locked up to meditate. So could you use the prison sentence as a meditation retreat? So I think it's the same with lockdown and quarantine. Can we use this time for spiritual mental development? Next question, what's your thoughts on alcohol? Well, I don't consume alcohol. As a monk, we don't take any intoxicants. And the reason for that is we want to maintain our mindfulness. We want to, one of the things about alcohol is it takes away your mindfulness, takes away your awareness. It makes you mindless. It makes you kind of get out of your head. And sure, people drink, yeah, they want to relax or they want to feel good, but maybe they don't realize that they can do it for themselves without needing a substance. So you don't need alcohol, you don't need drugs, you don't need anything, because you have the power within yourself to calm down and feel good through meditation. So that's much healthier for you then. Next question, how do you find the balance between accepting our thoughts and people around us just as they are and having to make decisions to change certain situations? Yeah, this is a deep question, because, when we look at the teachings of Buddhism, when we look at meditation, mindfulness teachings, they always talk about acceptance and letting things be. And it sounds a little bit passive, because you might think, well, how would I ever then affect change in the world? But I think the two are connected, because I think through accepting our own mind and accepting the way other people are, that creates a basis of compassionate understanding, and then dialogue can take place. You see, if dialogue and trying to make changes are based on a sense of hatred, aggression, non-acceptance, nobody hears anything. There is no discussion. But when we accept somebody for who they are and we love them just the way they are, and we love ourselves just the way we are, we can start to have a genuine conversation. And also we can start to make decisions to improve things, because the basis is one of kindness. Next question, how long and how often do I need to meditate before I can reap the benefits? Well, it's different for everybody, and it's hard to really answer that question, because there isn't a set program of, oh, if you do it for this long, after this many days, you will get the results. It's more that you just slowly start to evolve and start to feel calm and start to feel less stressed. And that can be a matter of days or weeks or months for people. It's different for everybody. But the crucial point here is it's not so good if we are grabbing onto the results, you know, sort of expecting too much and constantly worrying, is it working? Am I getting something out of it? I think we just need to do it and let go and let the results naturally kind of emerge, because we're not searching. Again, it's that searching leading to more searching. Just relax and let go. And then it's a lifetime's journey. It's not that we're going to meditate and then sort of everything is done and we're finished and we can stop. It's a bit like exercise. You know, if you start exercising, then you get fit. You don't then think, okay, now I'm fit, I can just go to bed for the rest of my life. You're going to carry on exercising because it's now your lifestyle. So I think that's important, just to keep going. Last question here is meditations for caretakers. So I'm not sure I understand the question, but I guess it means if you are taking care of somebody, you know, if you're a carer, if you are, you're having to look after somebody who's sick or elderly, or something where, you know, you are having to look after them. Yeah, so of course, meditation is really important in that situation, because you are having to give so much. You're having to be the compassionate one. You're having to serve somebody and really put your own self aside and do stuff for them. And then you really need something to kind of fill your own tank. You know what I mean? So almost recharge your own batteries or fill your own internal tank, so that then you have more to give. Otherwise, you just feel more and more drained. So I think in that situation of being a carer or caretaker, meditation is a matter of survival. You've got to give yourself that every day. You know, surely there's some time you can take 5 or 10 minutes to meditate. And this, you don't need to feel guilty that you're taking time for yourself, because actually doing that will help you have more to give to the person you're caring for, because it helps you to refuel your energy. Otherwise, you just feel more and more drained. So we've reached the end of our questions, and I think we've reached the end of our session.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. I even tried to do the meditation, which I successfully did, and I hope everyone got as much out of this as I did. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's late there, but you know, we all really appreciate it. I'm getting lots of thank you comments right now coming in. And for all of you who are attending or who have called in, I will be sending around a follow-up email with a link to the recording and links for where to purchase the new book. And yeah, so be on the lookout for that. And again, I want to thank you, Gelong Thubten. It's been great.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Have a good day. Sleep well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's late night here in England. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Bye.